What I noticed is that a lot of people think Rent a Girlfriend is supposed to be about a pathetic loser, Kazuya, bettering himself via a positive love interest, Chizuru, when it made itself exceptionally clear that it isn't. Chizuru is not going to be Kazuya's salvation. In fact, Kazuya isn't even in such a bad situation. He lives by himself, has friends, a social life, a future career at his family shop, a loving family who spoils the heck out of him. He just thinks about sex all the time, quite a bit more than a normal person, and he struggles to form a solid romantic relationship. Not exactly an uncommon thing. He's looking for approval from his family. He wants them to be proud of him and acknowledge that he can fulfill their expectations. And this pressure is what forces him to create and maintain a fake image. An image that would satisfy his family's expectations. Again, not exactly an uncommon thing. Chizuru is actually the damaged one between the two. She's the one who needs to better herself through Kazuya. She's the odd one because no matter how much Kazuya does for her, she always backpedals on him and treats him very cruel. The story gives her a lot of leniencies, but when the cards are dealt, she's pretty toxic for Kazuya. She always comes up with this collection of statements to justify and convince Kazuya that he doesn't actually love her. And if he doesn't deny these statements, she gets mad at him. Kazuya made it incredibly clear that he loves Chizuru, yet she still refuses to address the situation. So the main thing for this series is how Kazuya and Chizuru like each other but have trouble confessing their feelings for various reasons. Kazuya genuinely loves Chizuru and wants her for himself, but he thinks he's not good enough for her. If he acts and tries to move the relationship forward, he might lose all of it, and so he fantasizes about what could have been if they were actually together. He tries to improve himself to get to a point where he thinks he's worthy of Chizuru. Now, Chizuru also loves Kazuya. Genuinely, that I don't know. The love she longs for seems to be more familial than romantic, but that's exactly what she's trying to figure out. Whether she loves anything at all about Kazuya outside of that feeling of comfort and familiarity. Which is why I find it a bit puzzling to see people pretend this manga is something outrageous, when at its worst, it's a manga where there's little development. You read 50 chapters and not much changes? Yeah, that could happen. It's annoying, borderline frustrating to read weekly, but is that something to call outrageous? It's a rom-com drama. It's not going to have intricate levels of writing and most definitely not thought-provoking characters with mind-boggling motives and goals. Yet, it still stands out among its peers and it appeared to have achieved a notoriety for itself. That notoriety is what I want to talk about, or rather, rant about. This is coming from a guy that finds the manga genuinely entertaining and is probably going to stick with it until the end. I'm no mother basement. I'm not going to hop on the hate train just because that's the current trend. I want to talk about some things that gradually led to a moment that completely changed the manga for me. Unfortunately, in a negative way, but we'll get to that. So, let's shed some light on this and start with the most questionable writing choice Reiji made, and that was to make Kazuya completely uninterested in the other girls. Like, sure, he finds them attractive, but he makes it painfully clear that Chizuru is the only one for him. Even when Ruka offers him exactly what he wanted at the start of the series, Kazuya is not the least bit interested. Could be because she's a minor, but it's actually because she's not Chizuru. He quickly moves over Mami completely after a couple of arcs, and so she's left with no purpose in the story. She's caught in this ambiguity of caring but not really about Kazuya, which is not something wrong. She could easily hop on the role of a villainess, but since Kazuya no longer cares for her whatsoever, her actions mean nothing. They can't affect Kazuya. Then there's Sumi, who's actually a pretty straightforward character, but her screen time seems to be on hiatus. For some reason she's got a manga for herself which might have caused this hiatus. I wonder why didn't Reiji include those parts into the main manga instead. It's like saying people who are interested in Sumi should just read her manga instead. An odd decision. Kazuya's friends, Kuri and Kibe, while not designed to be impactful characters, have had their bright moments and acted like a wake-up call of some sort for Kazuya in a few instances, although they are also forgotten. So with the side characters being shunned away this heavily, pretty much having little to no meaning for Kazuya, let alone Chizuru, it should mean that Kazuya and Chizuru's relationship is the absolute prime and only focus of the series. That's cool, not really a problem, but what this does to the manga is that it limits itself to only 2 characters. Sure, the other characters can still be part of the story, but take Ruka as an example. Kazuya has no interest in her while she desperately tries to be his girlfriend. Kazuya will never give her a chance. She will never achieve anything of what she wants, which makes her a hindrance and nothing more. And this is the story of every side character. Mami's actions are a hindrance. Sumi's appearances are now a hindrance since her story is told through a side manga. Minnie, initially a pleasant surprise, has also become a hindrance as she's simply a plot device, which makes the manga rely heavily on Kazuya and Chizuru to deliver all the time, every chapter, every week. And they can't. They did it for over 160 chapters quite brilliantly if you ask me, but when the chapters keep coming out and the focus is still on these 2 characters alone, there's just nothing significant left to show. They either move to the next step or they don't. It doesn't help that on top of this being a slow burn romance, it's also dragged out by Reiji for reasons other than the narrative. The slow burn pace works very well in certain scenarios, like in the most recent chapter, where Kazuya and Chizuru want to live together but neither knows how to approach the situation. It's a big step in the relationship as it comes with a lot of pressure, and it's generally a hard decision to make. The snail pace works great in this scenario, however, this isn't the norm. The norm is having steady progression for a few chapters, then steady regression for more than those chapters. This cycle repeats many times, but at the end of an arc, the progression does come on top, ever so slightly. It's not ideal, especially when, at this point in the manga, Kazuya is in a very good spot character development wise. He has actually been in this spot for quite a while. He has been ready to take the next step in his relationship with Chizuru, but she's been quite literally running away from it. This limits the focus of the manga even more. It's no longer focusing on Chizuru and Kazuya, it's just Chizuru. Now, Chizuru is a very emotional person and she's also quite immature all things considered. With everything that has happened in her life, some of her behavior is fairly justified. However, with all the talks she had with her grandma, with all the things Kazuya did for her, with all the steps she has taken, she should have made up her mind already. There is no longer a reason for her to deny Kazuya. And here comes the problem with this. Kazuya is mentally and emotionally drained, as his attempt to finally progress the relationship resulted in Chizuru ghosting him for 3 months, and if it wasn't for Minnie's intervention, it would have lasted a lot longer. The man has done everything for her, and now he's just getting fucked over. With all the development he's gotten so far, his response to Chizuru coming back should be in the negative side. Make him a bit angry, resist her return, reflect on his decision, something of this sort, you know, show some coldness from him. Her negligence has made him suffer a bit too much for him to welcome her with open arms. Yet, the guy licks the ground where she walks despite all of this. This is all I'm gonna say. Any kind of progression that will happen after this incident is shallow. If they get lovely-dovely in the next chapter, it would be shallow. If they move together and have kids, that would be shallow. If they marry, that would be shallow. Nothing that will happen in their relationship from this point onwards can have any significance whatsoever. Unfortunately, it's done. The lack of consequences for Chizuru's actions, even when those actions were dreadful, has buried any profoundness of their relationship. From now on, it's just shallow and nothing can change that. Minnie having to take the initiative to get Kazuya and Chizuru to interact again doesn't benefit the relationship in the slightest. It only highlights the shallowness of it. Chizuru should have taken the initiative. Chizuru should have taken the next fucking step. Instead, Kazuya needs to pass an investigation and convince Chizuru to love him. It's just shallow. Man, fuck this manga and I'll see you next Monday.